Well, hey, everybody. I'm so glad you're here and sharing your knowledge with us as the Hydraulic Institute. Michael, just go ahead and introduce yourself and kind of tell us what you do there at Hydraulic Institute.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Mike Michaud. I'm the Executive Director of the Hydraulic Institute. We are the organization that really works on behalf of the pump industry, and happy to be here today with a couple of my staff members here, Pete and Danielle.
Awesome. Pete, what do you do there for the organization?
Well, thanks. Yeah, thanks for having us, Charlie. I'm the technical director for the Institute, so that has kind of broad responsibilities over standards development, certification programs, education, and technical aspects of government regulatory affairs. So those are my primary responsibilities at the moment.
And then we also have Danielle.
Hi, I'm Genielle Giordano. I'm the Director of Marketing and Events for the Hydraulic Institute. My team does all the marketing for the Institute, as well as organizes all of our in-person events.
Awesome. So Mike, I was really thinking about, how this must have changed the industry as we are all at home, as everyone can tell, during COVID. What have you seen?
Well, the same exact thing, right? Folks that can work from home are working from home. There's a lot of that going on, even in our industry. Pump manufacturers manufacture, their suppliers manufacture. Fortunately, these industries are all essential. So most, if not all of our companies are still up and running from a manufacturing perspective. That's brought a lot of changes. Things like staggering shifts and bringing different folks onto line at different times. A lot of social distancing has taken place throughout. But I've heard just recently this week that folks are very, very close to getting back to normal at the manufacturing output level. Back office functions, a lot of the engineering teams will still be working remotely, but the manufacturing is there. We're producing because our products are so critical. We're an essential industry, essentially. We serve so many different markets, and
yeah, equipment doesn't stop, right, Mike? It doesn't stop. We still need, our water, our food, our energy, and so many of our, your members in our industry are critical there. And I think the point is they're critical all the time, and so we need to get them back up and ready, working at hopefully closer to full speed, right? When you think about that and think about the essential workers, how does HI fall into that and helping our industry?
Well, we're here to help the industry as a whole, and there's a lot of different facets to that. And I think we'll get into a few of the themes, throughout the conversation today. But I think fundamentally it starts with an organization that is there to help its members thrive. And one thing that's critical to that is standards. Standards play a critical role in terms of making sure that everybody can focus. If it's the pump manufacturer, they can focus on manufacturing. If it's the end user, they can focus on their needs, but have a language that talks to the manufacturer. And I think Pete's really well positioned to dig into that deeper if you'd like.
Yeah, absolutely, Michael. Yeah, when you think of our manufacturers, they're certainly essential, and enabling them to do that essential work is standards. Standards are critical for design, testing, specification. It creates that common language and common expectation, and not to repeat the word, but sets the standard for how things will be done. So it puts everyone on a common foot, and they're necessary for the commerce, to support our infrastructure and support everything that we do. These pumps are certainly used in places you wouldn't even think, and our standards that we work on support that, and so we take it very serious, how we develop those standards, and it requires us to collaborate, right? So we need to have pump manufacturers along with consultants to the industry that design and develop pumping stations, as well as the users of the pumping equipment. Everyone involved And we do that work in a collaborative, you know, non-biased, balanced way. And bringing all those voices together to develop those standards makes them credible in the industry. So it's a little more challenging now to do that. You know, we would do that in person, and we're still going to continue to do that in person in the future. But right when, you know, the COVID-19 pandemic really took hold here, we had, you know, a conference call with our technical leadership, or the members of our organizations. And, you know, they shared a little bit about what they're doing to get through this and continue to manufacture their products. And we did the same thing on our end, you know, discussing with them what's the best way to continue the important work they're doing for the industry, because they're really volunteering their time and supporting the industry with this work. So how can we continue that? And we set plans in place to, you know, continue that work virtually, and hopefully not miss a beat, you know, really.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think, you know, standards are important. I'm so glad that y'all got to get together in February to go over that and really be able to connect with the people who care about standards. I was actually interviewing Matthew Shaw on the podcast that we had, and you know, he was so excited about getting involved and making a difference in setting those standards. So just a shout out there, y'all are making a difference. And you know, what does that look like as far as virtually? I think, you know, is something we really got to think about. And, you know, Danielle, I guess you could talk to that as far as training and events. You know, what does that look like in the future?
Sure. So unfortunately, because of COVID-19, we did have to cancel our technical meeting, which was planned for June. But our committees are still meeting. They're just meeting more individualized instead of in person. They've upped the amount of meetings that they normally would have in between in-person events, just to be able to continue the work that they're doing. And not being able to do it in person means they didn't want to miss out and delay the standard, you know, documents getting done. So currently we are still planning our fall conference. I think there's an eagerness from the committees of wanting to get back together if we're able to, because they do enjoy the networking and working collaboratively in person and, you know, getting things done there. We did have a event planned in August that we co-locate with the Valve Manufacturing Association, our Market Outlook workshop. We've just moved that to a virtual event. It'll be the first virtual event for either organization. And we're still kind of working out those details. But we're excited. It'll be the first of its kind, and, you know, we're going to learn as we go. And, you know, this is just the best way to evolve, is, you know, take everything in stride.
Yeah, I agree with that. And figuring out how to do a virtual event and being kind of one of those first out there to show our industry is important too. So thank you for the courage in doing that. You know, I think when we look at y'all's membership and getting together, there's several groups, right, that can, you know, really create change within our industry. And we don't want them to not talk to each other. Mike, can you talk a little bit about, you know, some of the things that are coming up?
Well, yeah. So like this whole theme about moving virtually isn't something new. We've regularly had webinars. It's a regular part of our portfolio. We're just finding it a little bit more. There are more of them, and they're more often, and there are more of them, essentially. So we have groups. You know, every year we have our annual meeting and our fall meeting. We have essentially the CEO and executive teams that get together and talk about issues and network as peers. Well, we're doing some of that offline or online, actually, through roundtable updates. We had a speaker talk about trade issues and how to really prepare for COVID. We've had speakers that come in and talk about economic and sector updates. We've got a tariff update lined up. So we've got kind of specific focus meetings on specific topics that are relevant to various functions within our member organizations. We'll have a legislative opportunity update shortly, because there's a lot of legislation in Washington that's really going to impact our members in terms of you know, funding for infrastructure. And so these are things that members really need to be aware of. So, you know, our traditional mix of webinars and newsletters is still there and is still very much a kind of an underpinning activity that we do. But, you know, we are bringing some additional changes to some of our formatting. Danielle talked about some of the conference changes. We've got some changes to training as well. You know, we've added a new program called Basic Training, and that's a program for members that is essentially a web-based portal that we built, and it really addresses that fundamental need of workforce development. It's one of the key challenges that our CEO group, when they get together, they talk about that need. And we're going to be rolling that out to the public. Danielle, I know you've been working on a plan to take that to a larger audience.
Yeah, so like Mike said, we have this basic training module, which basically has a lot of fundamental webinars included about pumps, the systems, the components, that we've limited to just members, or we kind of rolled it out to members to begin with. And now we're looking to take that to the marketplace, because it's not just our members that need that training, it's everybody. So we're working on that model right now, and being able to bring it to the end user community. And it's webinars that are taught by subject matter experts on, you know, everything from just what's a aerodynamic pump or a positive displacement pump up to, you know, fundamentals of water hammer and pulsation dampening and a whole lot of other things. So it's content that needs to be out there to, you know, because not every company has a training department, and it's something that's easy. It's 45 minutes, you're taking it from your desk and you're learning from an expert. So we're hoping to get that launched by, you know, July, summerish, as long as all the components work out right. And we're excited about it because, you know, our members have embraced it, and they've been taking the modules, and we're getting a lot of positive feedback. So we're ready to take it to outside of our community and bring it to the end user community as well.
That's awesome. And I do hope it brings in some additional members. There's so many people maybe that aren't exposed to what y'all do. So hopefully this will reach them, and they'll get involved more as well.
Yeah, and that's, you know, that's really the more basic and fundamental things. We've also got some really in-depth multi-day activities that, I don't know, Pete's been involved in those in terms of developing a pump system assessment curriculum for that really trains and supports the certification program for pump system assessment professionals.
Yeah.
Are y'all going to be doing that in a virtual capacity now while we're at home?
Yeah, I can talk to that a little bit. I mean, so if you know, for the listeners, they may not be familiar with the pump system assessment professional certification program that we offer. You know, on that workforce development theme, you know, core to our mission is to kind of advance the industry and advance the knowledge base and the credentials of individuals. So we developed, you know, PSAP, Pump System Assessment Professional Certification, and it's really the first certification program specific for pump professionals, right? And what that entails is it, you know, bringing subject matter experts together, developing a body of knowledge, you know, required to do system assessments, and then having a group of experts develop an exam around those knowledge areas. So there's you know, 34 knowledge areas you know, that have been identified that you need to have sufficient expertise on to be certified. You also need to have a base level of experience and a base level of education to qualify to sit for the examination. But what we found was that you know, people needed prep materials and resources to kind of refresh themselves for the exam. So part of the Hydraulic Institute is our educational foundation. Pump systems matter, and just by the name, they really do matter. And we're focusing a lot on the pump systems with the Pump System Assessment Professional Program. So our educational foundation takes to market, you know, a 2.5-day prep course that we really designed to be live and in person with an instructor for hands-on. So, you know, the current situation presented a challenge for us. We postponed a course that we had scheduled for March that we were partnering or co-locating with the Turbo Machinery Lab at Texas A&M. And we had one scheduled June 2nd through the 4th. And we didn't want to postpone another course. So, you know, we figured out how to offer it virtually. So we're offering it virtually, you know, and our attendance has actually picked up, you know, from in-person courses, I think people are really receptive to the virtual platform. So we're doing everything we can to make that a positive training experience online. And again, we'll do it in June. We'll learn from it, and we'll improve.
Yeah, thanks for doing that and taking that step, because it is important to continue training, because the next step, we got to have the trainer to train someone else too, right? So continue that work. What as far as the challenge of setting this up, I know I didn't really prepare you for this, but what do you feel is like the major challenge to take a virtual or a live event virtually?
Yeah, it's definitely the interaction with the instructor. You know, if you think you have 10 or 15 people in a room, it's a little bit easier to have that open-ended discussion. You know, in that prep course, you know, we've got modules on troubleshooting or analysis. So it's really designed to be discussion based. You know, you've got some guidelines, but you really want to get interaction, and you want to hear the attendees' problems, that they've had, and then talk about, what troubleshooting aspects they did, or other aspects of the problem. It's a little more difficult to do that online, so we've got to work a little bit harder at it. Additionally, one of the nice things about the course is that we do exercises, and it's good for individuals to be able to work on that in groups. You know, they can talk it out, and then we can review it as a group. So online, we're going to need to make people comfortable with working through those exercises and sharing them, and then having a discussion about the answers, as a group. So those are the challenges. Presenting content isn't the issue. It's really the collaboration portion of it.
Yeah, I agree. Go ahead, Mike.
I just want to, add that despite all this COVID-19 and work from home and stay in place and social distancing, I think the one thing that has improved is everyone's ability to adapt to these technologies, like Zoom, all these web conferencing technologies. And, by making it so much a part of our daily lives, we've really climbed up that steep learning curve and making it part of our daily lives now.
When we talk about changing and adapting a technology, which is what this has really allowed us to do, I see that it's a benefit for all of the different manufacturers and suppliers who are, servicing and also bringing in this connected technology, right? So I think back when we were trying to connect people who were mechanical and electrical, now we're doing the same thing with this digital technology, and how are we going to use that to inform and educate and actually drive the equipment and forward. And I think, the more we talk about IoT and familiarize people with the different technologies, it's only going to get better. Thankfully.
And so we're hearing things also, a lot of the discussion about smart pumps earlier has been really about ways to control them and make sure they operate at the right place on the curve. One of the unintended benefits that no one really counted on before was the ability to monitor them at a distance, right? So now you don't have to go into the building and know how your system's performing. You can get a lot of this data offline. I think before that might have been way down the list in terms of selling points for this new technology, but now it's pretty much in everybody's front and center mindset, and so it brings things into a new perspective.
Yeah, and thankfully we have the solutions to offer that, right? They're there, they just weren't adapted quick enough. So I think that's great, and we'll look forward to seeing what the standard should be on that, right, Pete?
We're working on it.
Yeah. Well, so we were I'm looking at ER, and I'm not sure what that is. Can you tell me a little bit what are your the energy rating? That's what it is. Sorry, HI jargon.
So back to I think some of the opening statements about how ubiquitous pumps are. We are everywhere, right? Our equipment is everywhere. We're in every system, and effectively represents about 25% of the energy use in the United States is used to pump things. And so recently, the Department of Energy said they wanted to start regulating the pump industry and looking for those savings. And we've been working, strongly with the DOE, with the manufacturers to create a roadmap. And January 2020 was a date that everyone had in mind, and we're beyond that now. So I think it's worth kind of looking at where we are now in terms of what programs we have, because there's a significant advance in the energy rating label program, which is really a useful tool for utilities and for end users to understand exactly how much they're spending on energy through their pumping systems, and gives them essentially a roadmap to make some improvements. And I think, you know, when you look at any kind of disaster or everybody always looks at how you can get better after the fact. And so if you're looking at your systems and are looking for a roadmap to find savings, we've got some really good tools, and we've been working with a lot of utility partners on expanding those and making those more accessible in the marketplace. And the first one is of course the energy rating label.
So how does that work? What is the energy rating label? Tell me about that, Pete.
The energy rating label, well, maybe I'll take a step back. Mike mentioned the Department of Energy regulation for pumps, and what that did is that set a minimum standard that certain clean water pumps have to achieve to be able to be sold, and that was effective January 27th of 2020. But long before that, HI worked with the Department of Energy in negotiating that regulation. You know, so manufacturers' interests were represented in that. But core to our standards development, we developed the test standard that was incorporated by the Department of Energy into their test procedure. So the DOE says, you know, this is the standard and this is how you have to test it, right? So we supported that. So what we then did as an industry was we wanted to build on that core work. So we developed a test lab approval program that audits test labs to that standard to make sure that they're able to test to the DOE standards. And then if they test products in those labs, they can certify them in our energy rating database, right? And the scope is the same as the DOE products. And the reason for that is because we did a lot of research in the DOE regulation, where we surveyed over 20 plus manufacturers and had over 3,000 data sets of pumps. So we classified the market. We know what the most consumptive on the market and the least consumptive on the market are. So we developed a label that represents where an individual pump that's been tested to those standards is relative to the kind of worst performers on the market, which is now the DOE minimally compliant product, and the best on the market. So it's a very cool label. It's similar to like the FTC labels that you might see on like a refrigerator at an appliance store, and it'll say, you know, this product performs here relative to all the others. But what it really allows for is easy calculation of power and energy savings over the DOE baseline, or it can be used to calculate energy savings over a different energy rating. For instance, if you had an energy rating of 50 and another product had an energy rating of 10, the energy rating of 50 consumes 40% less power than the 10, right? So it's a very simple calculation. And the credibility that we bring with the test lab approval and then the label and the public database is that it allows utilities to develop qualified product lists and offer incentives for energy efficient products. So it's a tool for them to transform markets to more efficient pumps by offering incentives to buy down the price of the more efficient products. And the first, I think the first deemed incentive program is what we call those, was launched in early 2018, and we've had others come online. So Pacific Gas and Electric, Xcel Energy, the Northwest Energy Efficiency Alliance, and their members are offering them. We've been working with the Consortium for Energy Efficiency on their pump initiative that you know, they represent utility program administrators, you know, all over the United States who are looking to develop more deemed incentive programs. So, you know, we really see that program and the label accelerating over the next few years, and we see it as a great resource. And, you know, we're looking to bring an additional product online soon. So not within the scope of the Department of Energy are circulator pumps. So they're little pumps that are used for hydronic heating. so residential heating and cooling or commercial. And the thing is, there's a lot of those sold, maybe 1 million a year. And, small savings on a million products really adds up to a lot. So we're looking forward to adding circulators to the database in the near future as well.
Awesome. Yeah, as you were talking, I was thinking about, how we see those labels on our refrigerator, like you said, and I can't wait to walk through a plant or some, hotel or something and see that label. Is it something that they're putting on the product itself?
Yeah, so it's not a requirement of the program to put it on the product, but a lot of manufacturers are doing that. So, if you go to some of the trade shows, if you go to ASHRAE or one of those, you'll stop by some of the manufacturers' booths that have the pumps out, and you'll see the label on the product. It also works really well in submittals and marketing materials. So it doesn't. It's got many uses. It doesn't just need to go on the product.
For sure. It creates excitement. Danielle, I wanted to talk to you before I let you go. We hadn't heard from you in a minute. And last time I saw you, we were in that diversity and inclusion meeting that we had at the last HI meeting. And I just felt like that was such a great step moving forward. Have y'all done any other groups like that since, or are you planning to?
Sure. So we have started to embrace women in the pump industry as a group. And what that means is the pump industry is an industry that women are the minority. So we're trying to be more inclusive and have them bring new ideas. And one of the things that came up was the diversity part of it. So it's going beyond just the women, but also, how men can be champions for the women and bringing in different views. So what we did for that time is we brought in Kara Hertig, and then who's the executive director for the Society of Women Engineers Suite, and then also Carrie Greenfelder, who works in the wastewater industry. So we had a female engineer, and then also someone from an engineering association. Both came in and talked on the diversity topic. And the room was surprisingly less women and more men, which is nice to see. So it in my mind, it means that the Hydraulics members and attendees are embracing bringing in more diversity into the industry.
Yeah, and I found it very fascinating that the companies itself that were represented had plans and kind of standards within their organization of you need to go to these different classes and learn how to have a more diverse workforce, or to be an advocate for bringing in the workforce in general, right? I love how HI started the pilot program. When we talk diversity, we're talking young people as well. So I've just enjoyed seeing that part, and I didn't want us to miss it there. Mike, you look like you were about to say something too.
Well, no, I mean, that's an organization is only as strong as its employees, right? And I think that's one of the things that certainly our members understand, and they look to HI to supplement the activities that they have within their own organizations. So they'll all have their diversity inclusion programs, et cetera. But what we're trying to do is take a broader look and look at it from the industry. So our Pump Industry Leaders of Tomorrow, the pilot program you mentioned, that's a great one to ensure that the leaders of tomorrow understand kind of the network that's out there within the industry. Our efforts to create a women in the pump industry group really feeds into the various member-based initiatives and serves as an opportunity to share best practices. That's what a lot of our committees do, right? The standards committees get together to do best practices around standards and write those into very specific documents that are used in the industry. But we have other committees that serve to gather market intelligence, to gather economic statistics that are used without the industry. So again, our job as HI is to look at what we can do within the industry to identify those opportunities and then pull those groups together. And I think our staff's done a really good job of doing that. They've reached into the members, they've found opportunities, they've identified causes such as these and built programs around them. And it's been terrific to watch.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. Just, continue to grow our pump industry. I love my picture back here is the hidden world of pumps. And, I always say pumps are everywhere. They're the heart of the system. And we all know that, even though we go outside of pumps to, incorporate all the different tools, as we've been going through this, is there anything else, Pete, that you want to, show or Mike, that you want to show or tell the audience?
I mean, I don't have a whole lot more I need to share. I mean, I'm happy to talk all day. But, I think, it really hits home, the picture you mentioned in the back, and, for the folks watching, I don't know if they can see, but there's, inside that globe, there's a lot of different, pumps inside of it. And, pumps are really powering, our lives, and, the work that our members do, and, the standards we develop, support all that work. And the pump is really, the heart of the system. And, we're trying to focus on not just, the heart of it, but, the system that it's supplying as well. So, that's a core focus and something we always want to keep mind on.
Yeah. Mike, do you have some things to add?
Yeah, I guess, and I want to say that the current crisis that we're facing right now with COVID-19 really kind of underlines some things that, from an association's perspective, is core to what we do. When we think about what we do, we think about serving the entire industry, and we're kind of in it together. Mm-hmm. And I think that really applies to COVID-19 as well. We're in this together, and so we've taken approaches to be more inclusive. I think Danielle talked a little bit about what we're doing with the women in pump industry. We are being more inclusive in terms of membership. We've expanded that and grown that. We've got new supplier groups that are active now. We've got a growing number of standards partners that really commit to coming to our organization to solving problems and doing it together. We'll soon have a new group of training providers that'll help grow our ability to bring this much needed training to the marketplace. So I think if we continue to work together, we're going to continue to solve these problems, make pumps more efficient, create greater understanding of pumps and their uses in the marketplace. And that's what we're about as an organization, is to work together and solve problems. And I think the context of that right now is really appropriate. But that's what we've been doing for 100 years, and we look forward to continuing to do it. So.
Awesome. So I agree with that. We look to see y'all be supportive of our industry. First of all, thank you for saying yes to doing this. Why are we on a Zoom together? It's so great. I think I found a way to capture y'all and bring you into a room together for a little bit of time. So I enjoy that. I appreciate it. I thank you for doing this and leading in our industry. Before I let y'all go, I'm going to take a quick picture. So I've made everybody do this, so just you can smile or wave or whatever. And thank you. All right.